Hi there, and welcome to the I'll Try That podcast. This week, we are exploring a beer that was brewed by monks. It's one of the oldest in the world, and it originates from Belgium, and that is Leffe. But first, we are going to head over to Joe, who is going to hit us with this week's hot topic.
So, hot topic, no surprises here, because it's very hot off the press. We are, of course, going to talk a bit more about BrewDog.
Again, you always seem to be talking about them.
We do tend to, and they have a lot of headlines, but they are catching the headlines for all the wrong reasons right now.
Okay.
And I could say that, there's a couple of phrases here, it doesn't rain, but it pours. And, there's always, with every good news, there's always some bad news as well. So BrewDog is hitting the headlines for, as I said, some bad reasons at the moment. It all started, this first kind of inkling, I suppose, that there was some cracks forming underneath the BrewDog surface when an open letter from 61 previous BrewDog employees to the founders, which again was published online, hence it's an open letter, basically outlining their toxic environment they call having the culture that is at BrewDog itself. So what they've said is that they've created a rotten culture built on a cult of personality and treating their workers like objects. There's a lot of strong words in there, and it's there's a big, it's about a 5-page document signed, as I said, by about 61 employees, some of which give their full name, some of which give initials, as well, I'm sure for different reasons. But, what has been, kind of shown is that there's some real issues here that have yet to really been dealt with at BrewDog. And I think it has to be addressed. Have you heard much about this, Barbara, as well?
More or less, just as you said, interesting thing to look at, really, because obviously we, as Drab has identified, they're the usual suspects for the hot topic. But at the same time, there must be a bit of an iceberg effect there. Only 10% of it is above the surface, and that's what you see. And there must be a lot that goes into their outdoor persona, basically, their external persona, basically. But just pretty much what you'd said there, that there was some pretty strong allegations thrown about the nature of working there and how tough it was. And again, just the phrases that you said, so a fairly toxic environment and this thing about built around personalities. That doesn't strike, that potentially rings fairly true in terms of, for me, that they are a brand with a personality, so that kind of tallies. But the actual inner workings, the inner machinations of the brewery itself, I suppose that's really for the people involved to comment on, I guess.
This doesn't bode well for BrewDog, because their image, as we said, is so positive, I suppose. They're doing so much good in the world. They're trying to put that, and that's what all of their advertising is about. But if you think about it, their goodness and their wholeheartedness should start from within. It should start from a company basis. If they're not getting the core right, they're not going to be, I just don't think that the positivity won't flow through what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think it has to come right from the beginning of who you are as a company. Your values need to speak to every single thing that you do, not just what you put out there in a marketing speak, and to grab PR headlines, like being the first carbon neutral brewery in the UK. That you need to do things like, actually treating your workers, correctly and giving employees power and stuff. So which is, I think it's interesting. I mean, I think there's a couple of things this might have borne out of. Of course, the two founders, two guys, started up, still very much involved in the business, hence leading the business as well. I wonder if that's, the cult of personality speaks more to their personalities and how they've kind of created a kind of a beery aesthetic within the brewery itself. But also as well, I think they've been hoisted by their own petard here, BrewDog, because they've seen huge amounts of success over the last few years. They're no longer a, startup, trailblazer, that's coming in here and disrupting the big players. They are a big player. They're valued at £1 billion right now, their latest valuation. These are a big corporate organization. And yet it seems like they're not actually acting like a corporate organization. They're still trying to hold on to this, kind of with rugged demeanor. We're the punks in the brewing industry. We don't have to play by the rules. And yet actually, when you are talking about people and you're talking about your workforce, you very much have to play in the rules. You have to grow up, basically. And I think this is an example of where BrewDog need to grow up.
I think we look at a lot of smaller breweries or up and coming breweries that have come, and a lot of them do emphasize that they are a small team, that they are a family, that they are a business. And I think that's what BrewDog have put across. And it's just as you said, Joe, they're not a small business anymore. They need to think on the larger scale, the larger picture. They need to start looking after their team. And their team is massive now. Their team is huge. They're not just looking after the core people who were around them at the start. They've got to start thinking about absolutely everybody and anybody who's involved in their business.
If I can venture a slightly different perspective, I spoke to a friend of mine, and actually I kind of think it's relevant what you just said there, Rich, about the size of the size that BrewDog was and the size that BrewDog is now. I think 61 people is still a fairly significant number, obviously. But a friend of mine I happened to speak to about this article sort of said they kind of looked at it from a slightly cynical perspective. They go, well, no one ever really likes their boss, but at the same time, they have been wildly successful. Oh, these people are looking for something. But that is a pretty wild allegation to make in comparison. But I think there's always going to be a little bit of difficulty with your employer, but this does seem to have gone a little bit beyond what's kind of normal.
I think it's interesting because, they did in this year, 2021, become a B Corp. So a B Corp, as we touched on before, is a business for good, run by bees, exactly. But it's business for good. And that is a very stringent and strict level of criteria that you have to hit in order to become a B Corp. And of course, employee welfare, what you do for your employees, employee trust, profit sharing, all of that comes into scrutiny. So I'm interested to see, if this is something that's been missed in the vetting process, if this is something that adds a bit more to what your friend says, Barbara, about, there's maybe just some smoke, there's no fire. But I do think that there is no smoke without fire. I think that there is something here that needs to be addressed, and whether that's just an overhaul or an actual taking seriously these allegations, to kind of actually get the company in a better space and to damage, to help make the business feel more suitable for everyone. I mean, some of these things have been. I think people have also taken to light about this in the classic way that BrewDog makes light of a lot of situations. There's an organization called News Thump, which is quite big on Twitter, a parody kind of thing. They've basically taken one of BrewDog's cans, as you would have seen, and the writing in the middle, instead of Punk IPA, they've changed it to say "Stop complaining or you're effing sacked IPA." I think people have taken this as an opportunity to take some fun out at BrewDog who don't take themselves that seriously online.
That's a good point. I think what's interesting is what happens next, because I think they always kind of react to a challenge in a pretty interesting way. This to me is obviously is pretty serious, but you look at the Aldi situation with the anti-establishment IPA, and then what they do? They go and make an Ald IPA to then sell in Aldi. So I mean, they're pretty good on the old innovation front. So how they deal with this is I think going to make for some interesting reading.
So I think to bring on another one, I was saying before how BrewDog, it doesn't just rain, it pours. Well, more scrutiny and bad headlines have hit the wavelengths even of a couple of days ago, from the 28th of June. So remember when BrewDog did the big golden can promotion? Saying that their cans were selling, they were giving away, if you bought the 12 packs of cans, you could be in the opportunity of winning a solid gold can worth £15,000. That's what they said, right? Turns out that the cans have been, valued again by those who have won it, and they found that they're mostly made of brass and not gold. No, they have definitely said that these are not actual worth that valuation of £15,000. They put the valuation closer to about £1,281.
Okay. So I wondered if we spoke about this before. I thought the idea was that it wasn't literally a solid gold can. I thought the idea was that it looked like gold, as an imitation kind of gold. And I thought the idea is that once you got it, you could keep it, but then BrewDog would give you £15,000. rather than no, but it was actually meant to be.
It was the
No, it was all of their marketing was about a solid gold can. Now, even if that gold can was gold plated, so that wouldn't be solid gold, it'd be gold plated, but they've put an actual valuation certificate with it that is valued at £15,000, and that is what's getting scrutinised, where people are evaluating it and saying it is not worth that. Now, BrewDog have come back to say, that it's about the uniqueness and the rarity of it. There's obviously a retail markup with this. There's blah de blah de blah de blah, trying to justify £15,000. But as of right now, no one is giving £15,000 to anyone who has that can.
Okay,
I don't want. Who wants a £15,000 can?
Collectors be interested. Is rarity of it, but the problem is, Rich, is that, so there's a story that came out with this as well. Obviously, a good headline only comes with a good heart pull on your heartstrings story, and the story they focused in on was a guy in Scotland who won it, and basically he was like, I was going to use that money to get married. That was a big part of my wedding fund.
Oh, okay.
He was going to use the can and sell it. And it was a big surprise that he won it. And he was like, I'm going to use this money so he'd made plans for the wedding and blah, blah, blah. And then actually no one was going to buy this can from him for the amount that BrewDog said it was going to be worth. So, I think there's an expectation that they've sold with the marketing. Yeah. And then there's a reality of, like you said, who's going to buy it? Is it actually worth that 15,000? Yada, 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 yada. Oh, so I just think there's been a big oversell potentially on this.
Maybe BrewDog had in mind that he could do the catering from Aldi.
I'm gonna be really excited for the apology video that BrewDog puts out. We're sorry, with some people nodding, maybe.
Yeah, maybe like a big BP oil spill level of sorries.
We're sorry. Yeah.
But this is the thing, Rich. I think why this has gained quite a lot of traction is BrewDog are not backing down. They're not apologising. They're saying that this is just, there was a marketing error in how they talked about it, but these cans are still worth this 15,000. And I think that's why it's grabbed quite a few attentions. It's not like it's a mistake and they own up to it and then they reimburse everyone with the 15,000 that they said it's going to be. They've just said, tough.
Interesting, yeah, because I'm no lawyer, but I wonder from a legal standpoint, value is what someone will pay for something. So if they equally would say, well, we'd give you £15,000 for the can, then have they not been proved right, I suppose?
So this is the marketing legal tightrope that BrewDog have walked and weaved with this. So in all their marketing, they talked about a solid gold can, £15,000, blah, blah, blah. In the legal contracts that accompanies the can, at no point does it talk about it being solid gold, about being 15,000, about all these other things that would tie people up in knots about it. So it's that, like, legally they're covered.
I've just got one more. I've just got like another point to make. Did the can at least have BrewDog in it? Because then this person's been doubly cheated. One, he didn't get his solid gold BrewDog can. Two, he didn't get any BrewDog at least for a bit of kind of a bit like, oh, it's all right. At least there's some beer in it. He's been mugged off twice.
Drinking out of the gold can. Yeah, that would have been the dream, actually, wouldn't it? But if it's made of brass, is there not maybe? This is the way I'd spin it. But mind you, this is why I'm in a different business. But I think I'd spin it as no. We're doing a range of cans. This one's brass. The other one's going to be gold. We're going to have an oak can.
I would love an oak can.
You would. You've got oak can written all over you, buddy.
Yeah. Is it because I look so weathered at the moment?
No, it's the slightly dishevelled beard, which I'm very jealous of because I can't grow one. It's the slight bleaching of your hair and your fantastic shirt that you've got on. You look like you're a man who should be holding an oak can of BrewDog.
£1.50 from a charity shop.
Get out of town. You need to redesign my wardrobe. I look like Mark Corrigan from Peep Show all the time. People call me clean shirt when I walk down the street. I take that as a compliment, though. So.
All right. Shall we move on to the pursuit of happiness? As we said, this week we're talking about Leffe, which is probably one of the oldest brewed beers out there. It was, did it start in?
1240, I think?
1240. Wow. I was just reading the bottle. I was squinting. My eyesight is shot.
Yeah, exactly right, Rich. It's a brewing tradition since 1240, very prominently placed there. But it goes back even further in that this is founded by monks, okay, brewed by monks, and the monks started in a place called Notre Dame de Leffe, which is an abbey in Belgium, founded in 1152. So this has been, around for a very long time. And they started brewing the beer, in order to kind of kill germs and to help with that kind of, fermentation process, which helped with the drinking, at the time. But it actually went away for a little while after the French Revolution. The abbey itself was kind of put out of commission, but came back again in 1929. So there's a whole story around the abbey and the monks themselves, and then you get to the beer, Leffe itself. And that's really, I want to make that distinction. We're talking about Leffe, the beer, and the brand that we know today. That you can find all around the world, owned by the biggest brewer in the world, AB Inbev. So maybe we can just have a jump in and talk about the different kinds of beer that Leffe make.
I like that clarification. Just before we do, Joe, I love that clarification. We are talking about Leffe the beer, not the Abbey. We are not talking about the Abbey. Experts as we are on 12th century abbeys, that's a whole separate podcast that we're yet to design. We're sticking to the beer for the time being.
Our podcast has taken a real left turn, and we've now got the listener base. We want to talk about what we really care about: monks and abbeys. In
Monastery news and reviews. Tune in next week when we're taking. Next week we're doing an old classic, Westminster Abbey.
Amen.
We're all gonna get the monk haircut where we just cut the bowl out the top.
Well, you're getting there anyway, Barbara, aren't you? You're slowly receding.
Get out! No. I'm a full, luxurious head of hair. Stop it! We need to talk about the beer. Let's get into some liquid. I'm on the blonde, gents, which to me is the one that everyone kind of knows and tends to be the most readily available. But what are you guys drinking?
I am also sipping the blonde and could only find it in this absolutely huge bottle. Which I'm not complaining. I'm going to drink it all in this recording, but yeah, it's massive.
That's a good size.
I also have a massive bottle, but I'm drinking the Bruin or to us the Brown, the Brown Leffe. Now this is delicious.
I have what I would call a normal-sized bottle, but it's just the angle. It's bigger than it looks. I swear.
It's fine, Barbara. You can make up and compensate for it with how you talk about the beer.
Yeah.
I can't help but feel that sounded just a tiny bit backhanded. Because there's going to be lots of umming and ahhing from me now. Okay, well, it's a nice beer.
It's good things in small packages, some would say, right?
Indeed, quite right. This blonde, apparently without intention, unless someone's going to correct me on that, I get a little note of banana when I drink Leffe. Is that just me?
You know what? I don't get banana when I'm drinking this.
I just get this slight little note. But yeah, it's typical of, I suppose, a Belgian blonde, really. And I say typical, that feels like a bit of a non-thing to say, really. That's no great revelation. But I suppose, well, at least in my perspective, it's a bit of a classic Belgian blonde. I think I'm pretty well vindicated in saying that by the fact it's been around since 1240. But for a lot of people in the lexicon, Belgian blonde, Leffe are almost synonymous.
Oh, it is by all intents and purposes, it is their flagship product.
Yeah.
So the Leffe Blonde is the one that like everyone knows to and goes to, and that's actually why I was a bit surprised when I poured this this one out, and it was a very different colour to the one I'm used to seeing, which is that like nice kind of pale, kind of creamy almost looking liquid.
Well, this was my first ever blonde that I sampled.
You'd not lived
way back when, and I would. And I...
Delayed laughter, the best kind of laughter.
So I'm going to go back again. This was my first blonde I ever sampled. And this was and this was back. This was back when I was living in Spain in Leffe. And we were in this tiny little bar, and it was the only beer they had on tap for some reason. But it was the first time I ever tried. I don't think I'd even heard of a blonde beer until this point, because I was still very much just swigging lagers and whatever I could get the cheapest at the supermarket at the time. But I tried it, and I was taken aback at how much I enjoyed it.
So what I think is quite fascinating about this, we've talked about the blonde, we've talked about the brown. So actually, when the Abbey started brewing again after the French Revolution, the brown was actually the beer that they were making. So this is actually the more traditional beer, which is the brown, and the blonde came later. They tell some story about this, which I don't know about how accurate it is. Maybe it's a bit of marketing spiel, but they basically say that they left the brown out. It saw the sun and the light of day, and it became lighter and brighter, and they named it blonde. And apparently that's a beautiful chapter for Leffe indeed, is how they finish this off. So again, there's a little bit of artistic license that's been left with this.
I'm surprised they didn't just say, it was the monks after all, miraculous conception. It just happened, and it was the best damn beer that was ever made.
Well, so they were just saying that the blonde is basically the stale beer.
No, they haven't said stale. I mean, they're light kissed, let's say. The lighter, brighter version of the brown. But again, it's definitely not. They have very different brewing processes that have been changed. So
I know they've just gone, what a load of cobblers. Have you ever heard such nonsense?
I'd really enjoy it if all their vats were see-through and they just had big windows. That they just had to open just to turn it.
Remember though, Trappers, it's a monastery, so basically they wouldn't have been completely transparent. They would have been sort of stained glass, wouldn't they? So they'd have.
I would like to think the Leffe Monastery now is just made of these beer bottles, all their stained glass windows,
and everyone trying to give performer service is just absolutely slaughtered.
Talking about that, we sort of alluded to that Leffe has got many different beers, from its blonde to its brown, but they've actually got 9 different types altogether. Some of the most popular, I'll just go through the list. You guys might recognise a few of these. So obviously the blonde, the Bruin, the brown. I'm trying the triple, the Radhuis, the Ritual 9, the Ruby, the Nectar, which is a honey flavoured version. Ooh, that sounds nice. A Royale Cascada IPA. So they're branching out into things, and a 0.0%, just to name a few of theirs that they have. But maybe we could, talk a bit more about the flavour itself. So for me, the brown, as you can imagine, for a more kind of a darker ale, it's got these kind of caramel notes. It is a bit richer as well than the light blonde that I can remember in my taste palette.
I know it's funny that you said, and I've just seen that there is indeed a honey flavoured beer, but actually I kind of get that a little bit with the Leffe blonde. There is this sweetness and I'm looking for the right word. It's not syrupy, but it's that kind of sweet and smooth taste to it, which is really characteristic for me.
I think that sweetness is very kind of reminiscent of these kind of more abbey beers, that you get from the kind of these part of the world, and actually that sweetness comes from how they make it with the different ingredients and how they ferment it, and it's not syrupy. You're right, but it is that like sweetness that comes through.
I was going to say I get a real creamy thing from the blonde. I find it's a lot. That's what I get a lot with blonde beers that I've sampled now. Is they just feel a bit creamier, and they feel. I know it's not thicker, but I feel the sensation of it being thicker when I drink it, like a bit more texture and a bit, as I said, like before, and I'll say it again, like creamier, and that's it just feels a little bit more full bodied when I drink it.
It's not necessarily just the really crisp, sharp thirst quencher, is it? And I think, to my mind, that's probably why also I have in my mind that these are typically served in despite the size of you guys' bottles, these are typically served in smaller measures than your pint or your half pint typically, because I imagine that it's not quite as sessionable. The ABV probably speaks to that as well. That it's one you have a shorter measure of, I'd say.
Yeah, well, that's a good point about the ABV, because this brown is 6.5%. So you definitely feel it after, I mean, this is a 6.5% in a 75 centilitre or 750 milliliter size bottle that Rich and I are having. So that is a chunky portion of 6.5% liquid right there.
Well, the blonde is 6.6, so one more than you, so we win. Also, it's just the size of the bottle. I couldn't get this in any other size than this gigantic bottle.
It looks like you've got a club. It's like potentially a murder weapon that you've got in hand there.
Now, and don't get me wrong, I really, really enjoy Leffe. I think it's a really tasty beer, but I kind of don't want to drink loads and loads of it in one big hit. Do you kind of know where I'm coming from?
Well, I think it's quite interesting that they've opted to have these big 750 milliliter bottles, because I know they have. I mean, what size is yours, Barbs?
330. So I'm fun size, whereas you guys are a party / sharing size.
And I think that's the point. It's a sharing size. You know, you're not meant to consume a 750 milliliter on your own. Like, this is definitely, let's pour this out into glasses with people. Which I think talks to a lot about how they want you to consume Leffe. It is meant to be, as you said, it's not a session by yourself. It's let's all have this quite interesting beer together.
Perhaps a continental aperitif for a couple of friends before we perhaps move on to wine at dinner.
Well, they've really not. They've misjudged the pandemic, though, haven't they? As being a man who lived on his own in the pandemic, sort of thing. This is, once I've opened it, I have to drink it all. It's pretty much the rules.
Well, let's face it, you have 3 beers and you've already drunk more than 750 milliliters. So, if you drink 2.5 beers, then you're probably on, you probably want, that would be it. So I think that's the point. This would probably be better value for your money as well.
And yeah, these boys have been in town since 1240, so they've seen a couple of pandemics in their time. This beer's been through Spanish flu. It's been through COVID. It's been through the works.
It's been through revolutions. It's been through world wars. Like, Leffe withstands all.
And you know what? It is stood the test of time. It's a solid beer.
So giving a kind of a, I guess, backing to Leffe, it's quite funny actually. I've just clicked on Leffe through their website onto their Instagram page, and it's gone straight to the Leffe Belgium one. So I was first being quite confused because it's a lot of Flemish.
It's interesting. Sorry, you said the Instagram because I know we do the numbers, but also when I look at the bottle and I see the kind of it's not quite old English, ye olde English or sort of Gothic, but it's kind of this old style. It looks like how the manuscripts would have been written in the monastery. It doesn't scream to me big Instagram presence. I'm going to put it out there, so I'm curious to know what the numbers are on that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've basically taken the, you're right, like what is the Leffe colour? Will you guys tell me, what's the Leffe colour?
Yellow,
yeah.
So Instagram is very yellow, as you can imagine. It's their brand colour, it's what they lean into, and it's a monastery yellow, let's put it that way.
Okay.
It's it's a bit of an off yellow. It's not a real bright, sunshiny yellow. But yellow is the most distinctive and noticeable colour. So actually it does pop really well actually online. But they've got 15k followers on Instagram, and this is the Leffe Belgium one, but they've only got 35 posts, so I don't think they're not that active online.
They're not too worried about the number of followers they have.
And on Twitter, they have 12.6k. And again, very much the same, so not doing anything too crazy online. So I think overall we'd say, this is one of the oldest beers in the world. Made by monks, very traditional taste and flavour that stood the test of time. So if you haven't had a Leffe in you, either go for the blonde, go for the brown, whatever takes your fancy, or there's a honey one out there as well. Non-alc as well, for those non-alcos out there as well, which I've yet to try, but actually I've had good experience with wheat or blonde beers that are non-alcoholic. So because that sweetness helps massively with the removal of the alcohol. So I would definitely say give Leffe a try.
Definitely. The guys from the old school and with the 0%, that sounds like they're having a crack at the new school as well.
Ain't no school like the old school.
And that's all we have time for this week's episode of the I'll Try That podcast. And so from me, Joe,
Rich,
Barber,
and Simo.
Goodbye. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram,
Twitter.
I'll try that podcast.com.
And watch us on YouTube.
Goodbye now.